Welcome back to Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee, Dave. I'm so excited that you're here because we always have so much fun when we start talking together.
Well, thanks for having me.
Anytime, anytime. So I put in here that we're talking straight talk with Dave and that you are an expert on all things communication, leadership, puppies, and fun. So you can take it from there. and tell us
Let's see.
about
Leadership,
the puppy.
communication, puppies, and fun. Well, our puppy will is coming up on a year old, so maybe no
Yep.
longer a puppy. Fun
Still,
is always an easy topic. I'm going down to Florida coming up on October 27th to play in the Adult World Series. We
wow.
got two teams, 153 and over, 160 years and over.
Nice.
For
Nice.
2 weeks of baseball in the sunshine, get away from Cincinnati and to play baseball. So that's a terrific, fun thing to do. We're preparing for that in 2 weeks. Leadership and communication. Gosh, we could talk about leadership and communication all day
All
long.
day long.
Yeah, one of the things that I guess is top of mind right now is I'm acutely aware, and I don't know if you've seen this in upstate New York, but here in Cincinnati, the season's changing.
Yes.
Baseball in Cincinnati died at the end of the season. didn't make the playoffs, so October baseball not so much in Cincinnati, but all of a sudden it turns to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, and football is upon us. The weather turns cooler, the days get shorter, the anticipation of winter comes along, and it's ringing true to me more so this year than many, because we do have seasons in our lives that come and they go, whether that's physically in the season of the year where we're more active in the summer and we're more active in the springtime, or whether we're more dormant in the wintertime or slower in that wintertime,
Yeah.
or in a more lengthy period of time, looking at our younger life and being vibrant in our 20s and 30s and getting to our 50s and 60s and 70s and beginning to slow down a little bit. I'm a high energy guy, as you figured out, and we've gotten to know one another. I think 60 is the new 40.
Yes. I agree.
I've met so many people in their 60s that are active and just out there giving of their time and their energy to various causes, starting up nonprofits and giving back to the world. And in a season when I think about my grandparents who were old at 60,
Yes.
and the generations before us that had much lower lengths of life expectancy. And so I'm really thankful for each season that's coming along and stretching that period of time.
Yes.
And anyway, I thought that might be a good place for us to jump off our conversation.
I love that. I think it's brilliant, especially as I have a window to my right and I can see the leaves kind of blowing through in my peripheral vision, and they are beautiful hues right now. And this is the part of the change of season that I like. Next weekish, when all the leaves are gone, then I'm ready for spring. But this is beautiful. But I love the correlation to life because we do have those seasons where we have seasons of joy and seasons of sorrow, and they don't exist without each other, and we don't appreciate the joy without knowing the pain of sorrow. And the same thing I think with the seasons, we don't enjoy the sun of summer without the cold of winter. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Birds back in the 60s had a song, Turn, Turn, Turn. And if you look in Ecclesiastes, you'll find the verse from that song specifically. And there's a time to mourn, and there's a time to heal, there's a time to live, there's a time to die. There's so many sections in our lives that we go through pain or struggle or whatever, not knowing or not understanding, I guess, or
Yes.
accepting that there's going to be a time to be joyful and to dance again. When in fact, we've been set back with health challenge, or we've death in the family, or loss of a loved one, or a dog, or a family pet. We just suffer in that time, and we don't think about that time to come.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, joy comes in the morning,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a movie out by Feature Films for Families, and when my kids were little, I really need to see if they are still in existence. Feature Films for Families created these great family films, and you could it was VHS back in the day when my kids were little, and I would have these VHS tapes shipped to me every 4, every 5 weeks, something like that, and one of them was called Seasons of the Heart. I would do almost anything to get my hands on this video. Seasons of the Heart, and the whole story was about, in the days of the pioneers and this young mother and her husband who were traveling across the land, and they ended up losing their 2 daughters to cholera.
Mm,
And in the beginning of the movie, it starts off with them in their little cabin, and the local authorities bring this little boy who lost both of his parents to cholera. So the exact opposite situation. And the husband immediately goes in and tries to pour into this little boy and who has lost everything. And the mother just can't. And every time
mm.
there seems to be a break in the season of her heart, some other tragedy will happen and it throws her back into despair. I'll cry because this movie, I'm telling you, I've probably seen it 50 times, but every time I think of it, it makes me choke up. It ends up being Christmas time, and she refuses a tree and she refuses any decorations. And
Mm.
she tells the little boy, "Don't you touch this and don't you touch this." And Christmas morning, see, I'm gonna choke up. Christmas morning, she wakes up and she finds the manger. The manger was what he wasn't allowed to touch. The and she comes down and it's gone. And she picks up a switch. She's angry. She picks up the switch and she's walking to the barn. And as she opens the door to the barn, he is standing there and he has created his own manger scene and his own Christmas celebration all
Wow.
by himself as this little boy, probably 6 or 7 years old in the movie, right? And he's sitting there and he's trying to sing Silent Night, and then he stops and he says, "That's all I can remember.
Mm.
My mom always sang this. Jesus, I can't remember any more of it." And see, I'm not gonna get through this. She drops the switch and her heart melts. The season completely changes. And she kneels down next to this little boy, arm around him, and helps him sing. And then they come back in and they decorate the whole cabin. And she has changed the season from winter to spring in her heart.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Mm.
such a beautiful um, reminder of really the seasons in life that we go through. And sometimes it just takes a long time to melt the cold and bring in the warmth of spring.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful story. I've not seen the movie,
Oh, good.
but powerful imagery that you've created, in your story, and the recognition of that in our own lives, and when those opportunities, where we do grab that switch, where we are angry for that moment of time, if we could just, whatever that just is,
Yeah.
that just stop, that just think about, that stop and pray about it. The social media, and you and I've talked about this before, can be such an angry place
Yes.
because we're hidden behind the wall of the screen that we have, and use of our fingers to create words. Junior high girls have been nasty for a long time, right? They can be Mean Girls, the movie, certainly metaphorically. But we now, as adults, have that same opportunity. And if we just, I've told my sales staff, my employees, just don't hit send.
Yeah.
Feel free to type it. If you really want to get something angry out, go ahead and type it, but don't hit send.
Yeah.
Hit the backspace. And people don't hit the backspace enough, I
No.
think, today.
No.
That's just my opinion.
I totally agree with your opinion. And in that time of pause, it is really maybe taking the time to circle around and see things from the other perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we don't do that enough. We just don't take the time to realize that everyone deserves to be valued and everyone deserves to be heard.
Yeah. And
In,
we
in
don't know what's and we don't know what's inside
no,
their background. We only see the glimpse of that particular action, whether it's a person cutting you off on the road or somebody who's you've just met and they're not warm to you.
yeah,
You don't know their background. You don't know their backstory.
yeah,
And until you get to that point, you do have to give a little bit of grace.
yes,
And it's one of those things that I've talked about, and I think you and I may have talked about it in one of our previous conversations, Carrie, is that if you share a little bit from your heart in opening up and saying, as an example, I did a recent podcast about divorce recovery, and I'll talk about being divorced at my age, and how what a struggle that was in that period of time. All of
mhm,
a sudden, the person on the other end goes, wow, now I can share something about my situation. I can feel a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more open.
yes,
And not that I'm not bragging about that I'm able to do this. It's taken a long time to be able to open up. But what it does is it allows the other person then to begin to tell their story and for there to be understanding, and for you, the listener, to become a curious listener, to be
yes,
able to ask more questions, to be more inquisitive. Tell me more about that. And we don't do that. We just want to interject our own story. We,
yes,
we, we want to be heard.
yes,
And if we were just more active listeners in that personal relationship, that business conversation, we'd understand why that employee was taking extra days off,
yes,
or why that person didn't want to talk about their family situation, and all of a sudden friendships develop.
yes. Or relationships are healed. Maybe family
Mhm.
relationships are healed. I remember just always having a bit of a tumultuous relationship with my mother, and then she lived with us for the last few years of her life, and I just couldn't understand why we couldn't connect on that deep level that I so desired as her daughter. And my brother called me one day and said, "Are you sitting down? Because I got some news about our family." And he had been digging through family archives. And he said, when mom was 3, her father actually murdered his mistress and then killed himself. We never knew. I mean, when I would ask my mom what happened to my grandfather, she would just say, "He's dead." That's all I ever got, and that she didn't like him. He was not a good person. I don't know anything about his background other than he came from Indiana. That's all I know about him. But she wouldn't talk about him. But it also made her she was afraid to tell us as kids because she didn't want us to think that that was the way we're supposed to live. And I think that well, I know now because I actually did talk to her that it so colored her world that she just didn't want to talk about it. She never really was able to deal with it. I mean, my mom was 85 when she died, so you're looking way back in the 30s and 40s. They didn't take kids to counselors then. She just dealt with it. And so I asked her one time, we were sitting on the couch together, and I said, "So, mom, tell me what it was like." And she just looked at me very slowly and she said, "It's too painful to talk about." And I said, "But if we don't talk about it, I can't understand what you went through." And it opened up the doors for so much deep conversation of what it was like to be a child going into grade school as the child of a murderer, and how the things that she endured through school because of a family situation that she had no control over. And just being able to turn and come around and see things from her perspective changed everything. It was a huge, huge lesson in my life of really seeing the viewpoints of other people and taking the time to shut it and listen. Oh, you're muted, Dave.
Oops, sorry
Okay.
about that.
That's
The
okay.
and think about the multiplication table that comes into play in that story, Carrie. How many family members?
Yeah.
How many exponential generations now can you share that story with? How many more individuals on the planet will hear that story through this podcast and
Yeah.
be able to use that information to personalize it to go, hey, this person shared their story, and now maybe I can heal, or maybe I can help somebody else heal. That's the power of telling that story. Um, Another example, a friend of mine, among the most positive people on the planet, died of serious stomach cancer. And he fought tooth and nail, but in the meantime wrote stories of positivity, had a nationally syndicated column. He wrote a book called Playing with the Enemy. And the story is about World War II and baseball, because he had a passion for baseball growing up, but his dad didn't foster that passion for baseball.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't know why. And as an adult, he got to a point, not quite your and my age, but younger, and said, hey, Dad, what's the deal? Tell me this story. Tell me why you can't. And he said, it's too painful to tell that story. He said, but I've grown up. I'm an adult. I'm able to hear that. Well, he told him the story, and I won't go into great detail because it's immaterial to your and my conversation. Pick up the book called Playing with the Enemy, and you can hear the story in all the great detail. But his point was that if you don't tell me, we can't heal this relationship. We can't heal this challenge.
Right.
Well, 2 weeks after he told him, his dad passed away. After they had this intimate conversation and his dad told him all the details, well, it opened up a whole can of worms that he was able to then research and to learn more about his dad than he ever knew about his dad. And it turned into a book about his dad's life in World War II and with baseball.
Wow.
And it's a baseball bestseller. It's an amazing book. It has been critically acclaimed. Hoped to be a movie at some point in his life, but that wasn't meant to be. But my point is that much like your story, Carrie, had he not fostered that conversation with his dad, it never would have happened.
Yes.
2 weeks later, he'd have passed, and he would have had those questions unanswered, and his generations, his kids, his grandkids, would never have known the answers to those things.
Those conversations are so powerful, connecting on that level. And I don't see it or hear it happening very much anymore. We stay so busy. Our noses are
Yes.
in this device all the time. And we just got back from the beach, and it was insane to me to see families walking together on the beach, but only physically.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody had a phone. Everybody was scrolling their phone while they were walking out to dinner, the same thing. And I wanted to go around with a basket and collect all the phones and say, just ask a question. Let's just ask one question. I promise you, I will give you your phones back. But can you talk to the person you're here with? Just
Yes. And the same thing goes true for our kids and our grandkids in the car. They're entertained by the screen while they're driving down the highway. When you and I were kids, and our generations before, we had to talk. We had to look left. We had to play the license plate game. We had to count the number of silos. We had to count the number of trucks, whatever it was, and we would interact off of the road when we went to the gas station or to the rest area and had a sandwich. We had games to play. People don't play games interactively the way we used to.
yes. Yeah. I've always loved board games. Growing up, we had game night every weekend, and it
Mhm.
was Yahtzee or Scrabble. Then Pictionary came onto the picture onto the scene. I still have our games up in my closet. I
Sure.
also have Monopoly and all these other board games that we used to play all the time.
Yeah.
And as the years have gone on, they've gotten played less and less and less. And I was looking at them the other day, thinking, for this year for Christmas, everybody's getting a board game. We're all getting a board game. I am tired, really. I mean, I'm just tired of get together time, meaning everybody's at the table and everybody has their phone right next to them. We don't need that right next to us at the table. We can
No.
learn to connect and play again. I mean, it was just fun with the getting out the Yahtzee, what are they called?
Yeah, the
Dice.
dice. Yeah.
Thanks. and and the math skills we learned and the language skills we learned playing games or even
Mhm.
doing a jigsaw puzzle, which I
Mhm.
always have going on at my house. There's always a jigsaw puzzle that has in various um, signs of various ways of completion there. But I feel like if we could just impress upon people the importance of talking, of
Yeah.
listening, of putting down the devices in the car. I mean, I have in the back of my van, it has a screen and you can put a DVD in the front and the
Mhm.
people in the back can have their headphones on. They're all still in their original plastic. They have never been opened and I will
Yay.
never open them. I just think we can all talk. The car also has cabin speak, so you can hear the people in the back, all the way in the back of the van, up at the front, and I'll turn that on all the time.
That's
But
terrific.
I want people to talk. I want them to connect. I mean, that's who we are. That's what we do, Dave, right? That's our desire for people.
It is, but we have a generation that has grown up with the technology that we didn't have,
Yes.
and the new norm somehow has to be either embraced, where you can put it down, where you can have both, because you
Yes.
do need to have the interaction, you do need to have the access. But I told somebody the other day I went down to Wrigley Field on the L when I was in junior high. We didn't have cell phones. When we got back, we got back.
Yes.
My mom trusted that we would get back on our own on the L, that
Yeah.
we would have enough money or have the extra dime or a quarter in our pocket to make a phone call if there was an emergency.
Yeah.
We don't have that today. Today, we can track our kids on
Yes.
the device and know exactly where they are, or
Yes.
track our husbands or our spouses and know exactly where they are, and when they're going to be home.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a place for those things to take place,
Agreed.
but you have to be able to do as you suggest. And again, my business teams that I've worked in have had those team building exercises. And again, thinking about not to change the subject, but to go back to the seasons portion of this. I talk to business owners all day long about planning, business planning, succession planning. And I met with one of our chamber members recently and doesn't necessarily have a succession plan.
Mm.
But I suggested, because he's in a seasonal business, that he, as the seasonal business slows down this fall, that he able to take some time, some quiet time, get away from the office, find a hotel lobby, and just sit down and start to think about or write down some things.
Yeah.
And these seasons pass so quick. It'll be spring. Spring baseball will be here, and I'll be ready to play baseball again. But if I don't embrace that downtime to be able to create a budget, to plan for what events I want to create for 2024,
Yeah.
what new things I'd like to implement with our team, whatever that is, shame on me for not embracing that season and just going, oh, you know what? It's cold. I'm going to be dormant. I'm going to flip on football and veg out.
Yes.
Shame on me if that's what I'm going to do. And again, I'm tutoring currently a fourth grade student on Wednesday afternoon, and it's only for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But people have asked me why I do it,
Mhm.
and part of it is because I enjoy being able to give back. But
Mhm.
as much or more so, and to your point earlier in sharing your story, if we don't take the lead in modeling for our business constituents or other adults, hey, we can do this. We can raise up a child one at a time. These are at-risk kids that are reading at the first grade level or below.
Yeah.
And if they get to fifth grade and they're passed over because the words get too big and the paragraphs get too small, or vice versa, whatever that is. Shame on me for not being a leader that said, "Hey, you can do this too."
Yes.
See, it's only an hour and a half, and again, in sharing the story that you shared with your family situation, somebody else is going to embrace that. Somebody that listens to this podcast is going to go, "I can do this too."
Yes.
Because Dave and Carrie had this conversation, and I don't know what that means for them and their lives and the challenges that they have or their personal situations. But we as leaders, if we're not providing those positive stories, shame on us, because I can tell you all day long, I saw this TikTok video that was hilarious about a dog jumping over another dog and then hitting another dog and them tumbling down. We've all seen those things, and they're great, they're cool, they're fun. But the real life guts and teeth to what we do in a day comes from these heart to hearts. They come from these meaningful relationship building things. And if we don't, we're going to get to the latter part of our season and go, well, I don't have any friends.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any business relationships. I don't have anybody to travel with. I don't have anybody to enjoy that that latter season of my life because I didn't invest in that relationship in an earlier season.
Yes. So true. It's so true. That was very, very powerfully said, Dave. I appreciate that. And you're right. We need to model it. If we don't take the lead, if no one takes the lead, no one will take a lead. We have
Yes.
people who are willing to stand up and take that leadership position and grow themselves and then help others grow themselves. That's how that's how John Maxwell says, first you watch me do it, and then you do it with me, and then you do it alone, and then you teach it to somebody else.
Right. And that powerful lesson to teach somebody else, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You'll be able to teach it so many times over.
That's right.
But you have to get through those first 3 steps, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do. You do. So I'm just like, how have we been going for almost a half an hour already? It goes so fast when we talk together. So let's move to your version of your Pow Pow shoes today.
So the Pow Pow shoes today are that I'm going to play baseball.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put on my baseball shoes and I'm going to swing for the fences. I'm going to play like there's no tomorrow, because there may be no tomorrow. We've been given a gift, and that gift is today. My gift is being able to catch behind the plate 40 games this season. I caught 40 games, and people say, "Oh, how'd your knees hold up?" And I go, "I have terrific knees. I've got a great regiment, and it's my Pow Pow gift. But more importantly, is my gift to those that are going to be down at this event." I've created some fun, creative, outside the box thinking baseball stuff. I'm actually giving gifts to the umpires. If you're an umpire at the Roy Hobbs World Series and you're watching this, watch for Pudge Moravec to hand out some fun things. But the important part is I'm going to swing away. I'm going to give it my all and not know whether I'm going to go back to the World Series next year. This is my time.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. And how about a writing prompt for us?
Yeah, writing prompt. And I think I may have mentioned this before, but take the time to write to somebody. Write a personal Christmas card this year. Don't just sign your name, "Love, Dave." Sign it with conviction. Take the time to write that card and write something personal. I haven't heard from you or talked to you in a while, and hope that we can catch up this winter by Zoom or by phone or in person. Let's grab a Coke or a lunch together.
Yes.
Take that time to write a personal note in your Christmas card. I get so many Christmas cards from vendors where the name is printed in the Christmas card. And it could be a bank, it could be a printing vendor, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
And there's no signature. I go, what thought was put into that? Well, there was a label on the front that came off of a computerized list.
Yes.
I have certain people in my life that write personal thank you notes. I got one from a student at my alumni at my university who wrote me a personal thank you note because I picked up the phone and gave a donation to the university. She took the time as a freshman to make the phone call, but she also took the time to handwrite a nice personal thank you note. And that was nice of her to do. She didn't have to do that. And obviously trained well by the university because it encourages more of that,
Yes.
obviously. But yes, absolutely. Right in your Christmas cards.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I ordered my cards. I'll be picking them up soon. I have them all handmade, and then I send them out every year. And my mom used to say, "Honey, with postage going up and up and up, why do you still send out cards?" Because I love getting them. That's why. And because I love opening them, I am assuming that everyone loves to open them.
Yeah. And we get so few these days. We get fewer and fewer because
Yes.
people are thinking those same kinds of things.
Yes.
But you can make a difference,
Yeah.
especially those, and maybe add somebody to the list that you wouldn't have otherwise added because they took you off of their list.
Mm.
Because you
yeah,
didn't get one for the last 5 years. Yeah, because you didn't get one from them for 5 years. You took them off your list. Put them back on and reconnect.
I leave them all on there. I never assume it's because they didn't like me. I assume because maybe finances were tight, or maybe they needed to use that money for something else.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just were going through a really hard time and literally could not come up with the time. So I always order the cards, and I order them right after Christmas. My daughter makes them. She makes the most amazingly beautiful cards. So I give her a whole year.
Yeah.
How can you decide what you want already? I like everything you make. So just design me a card. I don't care.
And you know what you can do, just a fun thing, because I do go to Goodwill or to the local thrift shop. People turn in boxes of Christmas cards.
They do.
And retro, you could they'll all look different. They might have glitter on them and a reindeer that looks inappropriate, but again, it's the thought that counts. If you can't afford $15 a box cards, you could probably find one for 50 cents or $1.
You sure can.
So
you sure can. You sure can. And if you plan ahead, go the day after Christmas, you get them dirt cheap. You just
great idea.
Hold on to them for a year, which I have done in the past as well. So, oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I love spending time with you. How can we find you? How can people tap into more of Dave from Coleraine Chamber?
Yeah, absolutely. Our chamber website is colerainechamber.org. You can reach me at president@Coleraine, COLERAIN, chamber.org.
Okay.
Or you can reach me through the office, 513-923-5036 here in Cincinnati.
All right. And I will link all of that under all 3 places that we have just streamed into so that everybody can find you, Dave. I appreciate you being here. You're amazing. And we'll do it again soon because there's always more to talk about than we have time to cover.
Carrie, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.